All right, welcome to Huddle, everybody. It's not like we haven't had any change in the industry, right? Well, today we'll talk about buyer guide and how we're adjusting to everything. Thanks for attending yesterday in our company-wide discussion and Q&A about the NAR lawsuits. I thought Mark and leadership team did a fantastic job of going through those questions. Does anybody have anything that's burning that they want to talk about, or some interesting point around the change in the NAR lawsuits, or anything you want to talk about? And when I say lawsuits, I really mean the stipulations that are in those lawsuits. I did have a couple of friends ask me how they could get some money. And I'm like, well, you might get $3. But if you're when you get a postcard, you can fill it out if you want, but you might get $3. And of course, they're like, where's all this money going? And
I got a postcard.
oh,
I'm
did
very
you?
tempted to fill it out.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, hey, let's go. So buyer guide, that's the new, the new asset to work from. Wasatch Front I'm holding in my hand. We already have the Wasatch Back, and we have a Southern Utah. Other market areas with different photos are coming. The one you received in the annual kickoff meeting has been reworked. Love the way that the photography and the images and the spreads look. I mean, I know, like, Mike, you have it, right? Can you pull it up?
Yep, we're ready.
Okay, let's go ahead and look at that. I'm just going to march you through. As brought up yesterday, come with the emphasis that we need to change in our practice is to have listing agents. Sorry, let me move this out of the way for a sec. Yeah, listing agents likely are going to be bringing this kind of a presentation into the discussion with the seller, because I think the conversation begins with our sellers about how valuable the buyer agent is in the process. So thinking about this, because it was tour day in Salt Lake County, Wasatch Front tour day. If we don't have buyer agent commissions, then what's the point of a tour? If we don't have buyer agent commissions, then what's the point of featuring a listing on sales meeting? If you don't have a buyer agent commission, what's the point of telling anyone at Berkshire about your listing? So it's really ridiculous to think that it's a smart move for a seller to move forward without a BAC. What they need to understand is what the buyer agent does. And so I can see listing agents now having to spend a lot more time on buyer services. So can everyone see that okay? Allie, can you give me a head nod? Are you?
Yeah, we can see that. Hey, real quick, let's
Yeah.
let's answer this question before we get
Oh,
started.
yeah,
Sandy
you
in the
got it.
chat.
Sure.
Any
Okay.
clarity on if buyer contacts a listing agent for a private showing, if we will still need to get a buyer broker agreement signed before showing? I'm pretty sure she's asking if we're the listing agent and a buyer contacts us, do we need to get a buyer's agency agreement signed before they walk through the space, which is a really good question.
Uh, yeah, look, at the way that it sits now is no, this is only on buyer agency representation. The seller's agent's duty to show the house have already been defined inside the right to sell agreement, right? The exclusive right to sell agreement. So no, there isn't, what you're speaking of, Sandy, is that there right now the rule says before a buyer can take a buyer through a property, a tour property, they have to have a buyer broker agreement signed. I sure hope that rule changes. That seems very, very harmful, because you just don't know people yet. And I think we need a little bit of time to get to know people. But when it literally says that, no, I think, it may change. So we'll see. We'll keep our eyes on that. Right now, listing agents can show property. Of course, right now, nothing's changed until July. So right now, today, we're status quo until July. Anyone have a different perspective on that?
Um, well, a couple of things that we need to be aware of. Of course, we want to abide by whatever rules that we as an industry agree to, but also remember that you know these rules that are going to come about. I don't think they're going to be. They're coming from NAR. They're not coming from the state. And until NAR gets very specific about this, it's going to be very difficult to follow the rules as they've been laid out currently. right? There's a lot of questions remaining. So we just need to be patient with what's coming down the pipe.
Yep. In the meantime, let's make the case for having, our buyer agents and what they do and the value of the buyer agent. Let's make that case and get better at that. That we can control. So thanks, Mike, for that. And I appreciate the comment. Any other questions before we want to dive into this, or see Kevin?
Kevin says, will there be any type of advertising campaign from Berkshire stressing the importance and advantage of connecting with a buyer broker?
Well, you spawned a thought, Kevin. I brought this up before a couple months ago. Well, Kevin Larson, weren't you and I and Mark in the IDW when they brought out the rough draft of the video for consumer protection? Remember that video?
Yeah, that was more from the division that they were going to put out there to educate buyers and the general public. But I think the current ad campaign that Berkshire's running kind of touches on this, because it shows the buyers sitting on the couch in their new home saying how easy it was for their agent to get them into this. And then they turned to the buyer's agent and yeah, it was real easy. And kind of stressing this is a complicated process, and there's a lot of hoops that buyer's agent probably jumped through that may not have been apparent to the buyer, but they've kind of already kind of started down that path. And I think every level, UAR, the NAR, everybody's going to be focusing on stressing the importance of having a buyer's agent.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I good reminder on the Berkshire part, but I don't know that I ever saw the Utah division ad run. That doesn't mean it didn't run.
I didn't see it.
I don't know if anyone saw that, but they were stressing the importance of a buyer's agent. Yeah. So, okay, let's go. Everyone can see the guide. Okay. This is page 1. This is just market images will change. Let's go ahead and go page 2. The first thing I think you need to wrap your head around is that there's 4 sections. And the 4 sections have the 8 segments inside of them. And Mike, can you go to page, let's just clip through really quickly and go to page 31. So the 4 sections are the 8 segments. The 8 segments are in this wheel. So if I'm going to start off from scratch, learning the structure of this buyer guide, I would understand the 4 sections and then how the 8 discussion points go, each segment go in the sections. Okay. So at the top, we start off with meet with your Berkshire Hathaway professional, financing and qualification, finding the right property, constructing an offer, navigating details, navigating resolutions, settlement, closing, recording, possession, and buyer representation. Now, the buyer representation is at the end because that's the ask, but it should not be confused with when it should be signed. And that's why there's a little asterisk at the top that says representation should begin early in the process. Okay, so now let's go back to page 2 and 3. Or, 2 and 4. Yeah, or 2 and 3. Okay, so those segments are in sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 really is resources and checklists. So let's here we start off with the purpose of this entire guide is to take them from where they are now to home. Okay, so from here to home. And that's what the front cover says. And this is a guide to purchasing real estate. Everything is, okay, that's our objective, is to get you in the home that's right for you. So let's click the next page. Notice this is a little bit different just in the way that it's laid out from what we got in the kickoff meeting. So we've got section 1 has its own page here. It's got some summaries there, what's important to you, establishing an advantage, and all, like those are the sections, the segments that are in the section. That makes sense? I'll say that again. Those are the segments that are in the section. So it's a reminder to you what you're going to be talking to and addressing. Next page. So this, if you see down at the bottom, there's where the grid starts. At the bottom is where you are. Now it's a discussion piece. What's important to you? Tell me about what your needs are. There is a lifestyle checklist that can be added to this. And we're talking about location, features, amenities, why it's important to you and your family. It's really just, it's a reminder to have a discussion about what they're after and that you have clarity on that. Okay, next one. This is all about the important, sorry, geez. Come on, Will, let's go. Keep stuttering. This page is all about the importance of having an advantage when it comes to making an offer related to financing. Okay, we got to get you ready so we can have strength when we make an offer. And we have resources for that inside of Brookshire. So this is our chance to talk about who those people are, Metro Mountain Mortgage, other options for financing that may be practical for them, and really helping them get ready for getting pre-approved. Okay, next. And you got things like on-time closings and on-time funding. You can really dig deep into this. As a matter of fact, I think it's important that about right now, you should already start thinking about heroes and villains, problems and solutions. Remember, the old way of just saying everything's fine, we'll take care of it. We got to shift a little bit here and talk more about complexity. So we should have already talked about a villain in pages, what was that? 4 and 5 and 6. Eight and 9 on qualifying. The lender is huge in this. And if we don't have funding on time, that could cost us our earnest money. That could also default us, and we may have other litigating issues around this. Not to mention the fact that your family's been completely disrupted and you can't move in the property when you've got a truck full and the whole family's waiting to help move you in. So there's villains that we have to start talking about and how critical that is. We also could point to section 24 and talk about finance and appraisal with the REPC and talk about what happens if we don't have approval by that deadline and how that could cost them the home that they want. We have to do this now. We have to talk about those villains. So I'm catching myself here because I'm speaking to realtors, I'm speaking to you, and I'm speaking as if you already know all this. You've already seen the guide before, and I like, you can't do that live in front of an agent or you can do it in an agent. You can't do that in front of a client. Okay, next one is find the right property. This is Real Scout. This is the most efficient way for you to be connected as an agent to what they're searching for. This is notifications. You don't want to miss property. And then we have akin to that is land development, new construction, tell me about what's interesting to you. Are you thinking about new property or building something or buying a lot? This is all about finding the right home. And that sentence, that language is something you should memorize and have it in your repertoire, that you use that sentence. Finding the right home is important. How do we go about doing that? How do I help you in that? So think about our exclusive listings that we have that do have BACs, right? That are on our intranet. Think about pocket listings and the way that we go about giving our buyers an advantage. This is really critical to showing value, that we can put them on the front line, in front of the line when it comes to properties to choose from. In some of our markets, I'm thinking Moab particularly has a lot of new developments that are so great. Wasatch Back has a lot of new developments, but think about new construction in your marketplace. What comes to mind to you? So you may want to have that added in your buyer guide if you already know that they're interested in some price range that may have new construction, right? I don't think you can bring too much to the presentation. I just don't think you can. I mean, that's why we're 36 pages now. Yeah, 36. We'll be 38 when we get, actually we'll be 40. No, sorry, 42. We have to add 4 pages because we'll have pages for agents at the front. Okay, next one, Mike. Yeah, so here we got section 2. We've got making an offer, navigating complex contract processes. The details are important, make all the difference, and structuring resolution to your best interest. Look, can you guys think about that process, other ways to say that? When I say making an offer, wow, that's hard to do, right? Every situation is difficult to make the best offer, to compete. navigating the process of making an offer is complicated. Think of all of our supplementary clauses that we have. So I would bring with me, ideally, my forms manual, because I can hold, it's visual, and have documents ready to reference when it comes to talking about this. And yes, that's a lot more words than we're ever spoken in the past. It's a lot more complicated. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Next page. So this is all about you teaching them about the value you bring to making a competitive offer and winning the bid. If it's competitive, or helping them purchase the home and then protecting their interests. Look at the top, we have to do a value analysis. So we can pull sold data, making sure we don't overpay, look at what concessions are. You may want to show, like, have a rep see out talking about how you structure an offer. What are concessions? Teach them about that. Look at the comps and show these homes had concessions. They're going to say, what's a concession? And you're going to say, well, this could show up as a repair. This could be loan costs. So, oh, loan costs. Yes, you're getting a loan. How does that work? I mean, so many details you could jump into all around this, right? A market analysis that helps guide us on the price that we make, right? And sometimes there's competition. So we talk about multiple offers. You may grab the multiple offer disclosure and talk about sellers' options they have and what they could choose to do. You're like, wow, this is a lot. We're not even halfway through this thing, and we've got villains everywhere. So I think if there's any takeaway that you can start to wrap your head around, is you have to spend a lot more time talking about the complexities. This is on us. If we failed at anything, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, I think, well, I'm going to stop talking. I certainly have opinions on who fumbled and made this mess. But if we could look in the mirror and go, what could we have done better? We could have done better at explaining the value of a buyer's agent. And I think we've just not done that very well, right? So it's time for us to shine in this area. Next page there. So in this one, Mike, can you blow that up on the details page on what page is that actually? Yeah, 19. Yeah. So notice that we have referenced sections of the rep sheet that are relative to these talking points so that you could naturally go to the contract and show the details and the complexities there. So you just wrap your head around how you're doing this, right? So the ins and outs of earnest money, you could bring up the topic. There's yes, how much earnest money is expected? Where does that conversation take you? It could take you to section 16.1 and 2, because they're going to say, what happens when, right? How do I lose it? How do we protect it? So now that you're jumping into the details of the contract itself is so complicated and a villain. If you fail to do that, you're failing to show complexity. If you fail to show complexity, then you fail to show your value because there's no solution needed to any problem. Sound like a broken record. I think for those who've heard that a million times from me, I apologize. But it's so critical to get that down. Understanding the contract deadlines and implications. I think this is grab your calendar and do some hypotheticals. What does this mean? And there's your dates. And then you've got the rep sheet right next to you. Avoiding breach of contract. What does breach mean? And again, you got to jump into all of this. So section 8, when we say rep C buyer obligation section 8, what is in section 8, guys?
Due diligence, appraisal, and financing.
Yep.
Contingencies.
There's a great form that we can jump right into right here, right? So it's not just section 8 of the rep C. What's another form that would be awesome right there? So Rob, say those 3 things again.
The due diligence, the appraisal, and the financing condition. Are you talking the resolution of due diligence addendum?
Yeah, we can grab that one. We can also grab the due diligence checklist. So we're going to well, what's due diligence? It's these things, right? Mike, how fast could you pull up due diligence checklist? You have it in the background.
You gonna time me?
So think about adding what we do in section 8. So you've got Rep C, and then we take the Rep C and we reference due diligence checklist, and then we have the resolution sitting over here waiting, because we're going to march through contract, due diligence checklist, and end up in resolution. And the buyer guide is structured that way. So those are really good documents to have with you when you go to present to a buyer.
Oh, that's the. All right. This should be coming back into your view. There you go. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's just imagine you presenting to this. So due diligence, we confirm that the zoning is what they want to do with the property. We get, you're still showing the buyer guide, but yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, just you can pan through it really quick. Just look at it through the lenses of presenting it, not as a document of disclosure, as far as transactionally based. Can I rent the property or not? Are there hazardous materials? What about a radon test? Are we certain about where the fences are? Is that going to cause me a problem? Do I need warranty on this? Is there a floodplain here? Is homeowners insurance going to be an issue? Meaning, if there been any claims on this property that would restrict it from being insured? What about title insurance, and what kind of deed do I get? How about the CC&Rs? Is there anything in there that would restrict me parking my RV outside, and what I want to do with the property? And the physical condition of the property, which is stated in in section 8, more specifics, like 10 and 8 are very similar. Acreage, square foot, what we've seen in the advertising, utilities, and so on and so on. Like there's a lot of talking points that come out of the due diligence checklist. Then we move into the resolution. So now let's go back to the buyer guide. So as we're thinking about making these offers and drawing on legal assets, our customized addendums that we need, it's a benefit of being at Brookshire because of in-house counsel. We have legal assets that can protect our buyer clients that are customized to us. That gives us a leg up and an advantage on our fellow agent. New construction may have its own language. That's a whole nother discussion. We could have that out there too. A lot of builders have their own customized language. And then at the bottom, the buyer due diligence checklist. Okay, let's go to the next page. So the details are huge, right? In every deal. So we now talk about the seller's disclosures and why they matter to the buyer. This is great, kind of dovetails into buyer due diligence checklist, and now everything in seller's disclosure. So are you thinking about this point that it might be hard to keep everyone's attention like this? Yep. So we have to read we're still people. So when you're presenting, you need to address the things that they're concerned with. So you got to be ready to go down verticals that they bring up and be shallow on some others, but go deeper in the ones that they're concerned about. And I think that's very appropriate that we're still presenting. We're still communicating to another person, and everyone's got different questions. So there's a skill set here with the buyer guide that we take the lead on how deep we're going to go, not from what I want to present as if I have to check every box, but rather on what is concerning to them. And then I use the buyer guide to teach them and present to that, and then go as deep as I need to show them the villain. That's a great way to present. Okay, next page. So here we're moving into structuring the resolution, and we should have the resolution to due diligence right next to this page. So do we need repairs? Should we consider a price adjustment? Is there concessions that could solve the problem? And how do we structure that in the deal? And Mike is in the background pulling up resolution with that.
Totally
different. Let me pause right now. Any thoughts, input? Is this helpful?
Yeah. Well, I would like to add one thing about this.
Please.
When the buyer guide has been presented, one approach is, hey, this is the way that it needs to be done. The one thing that I want to point out is there are many successful agents that have presented a different model with their clients, and they've had a great deal of success, meaning they may show homes for a while before they get a buyer broker signed. They may take a totally different approach than what the buyer guide is designed to approach. With the information that we just received on Friday with the settlement stating that we have to get a buyer broker signed before we even look at a property. Now, whether or not that changes, we don't know. The message I want to take on this is this buyer guide is almost kind of an inspired document, because now with the new requirements, if that is in fact what we're going to have to do, for all those agents that may have a different approach on how they present to their buyers, they're probably going to have to adjust how they do things. And this buyer guide is set up in a way to make that adjustment very smooth and seamless. Yes, we need to get with our agents, with the client, and I get it. Some people may not want to sign something right out of the gate. Even more of a reason why it's important to have this conversation and walk them through everything that we do. And that's what the buyer guide is set up to do. So I just say this because there's no doubt about it. We have some incredibly successful agents, and this may be different from how they've done business in the past. But because of the current changes that might be coming, even now more than ever, we may have to look at making some adjustments how we normally do our business.
Yep. If it stays the way it is, we could have buyer broker agreements that are short term, buy property, just tour one house. You know, it may come to that. We'll keep our eye on that. I started saying years ago that we have to stop lead converting and we have to start presenting to buyers our value. But what we were doing, the reason why we were going to show house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is there was some
show that value.
Yeah, we got to know each other.
Yep.
Because that was the good thing about it. And then at house 7 or 8, when they said this one actually works for us, then we buyer brokered them and wrote the offer. And that was very, very common. And it's still common right now. And if the rules stay the way they are, we're not going to be able to have that process of show home, show home, show home, show home, then buyer broker, then write offer.
And Will,
Yeah.
one of the things that a lot of the agents that I work with have said is that sometimes I don't want to sign a buyer's agency agreement until I know that I like them and that they're realistic and that they're for real.
Yep.
And so they're talking about doing a short term until they decide, you know, they want to date them a while before they get committed to them for long term.
Yeah.
So basically that's, you know, we don't have the luxury of learning more about the client and, you know, really pre-qualifying them and all those types of things, unless we can go through this buyer guide and we can get their lender pre-qualification, get all this information, and we feel comfortable that they actually can perform and that their wants are realistic. And then we can determine whether we want to take them out and spend our time showing them property.
Yep.
Hey, Will, Kimberly has a question. Take it away, Kimberly.
Oh, I just wanted to say I'm so excited about this buyer guide. I have created my own buyer packets that I take on every time I meet someone. And I go over I give them the buyer due diligence checklist. I give them the rep sheet. I tell them, I know this inside out and upside down, so you don't have to, but feel free to ask me questions. I give them the buyer broker so they know what to expect. And I've had great success with just these packets that I've made, but this I feel like will just help with that. And I like what Kevin said as well, because sometimes you do want to fire a client because you're like, they are just not realistic and they're not getting it. But what I found is that as I explain these things, and I explain really fast because I tend to talk fast, I found I convert at 25%. I know my conversions. If Of the leads that I get, I convert 25% of those leads, and I have a system to do it. And this buyer's guide is going to go into that system. And the only difference for me is instead of going straight to the house, I'm now going to go to a coffee shop and meet with them there and have that conversation there. But I've had great success at converting these and getting signatures before even touring properties. So I'm not threatened about the changes because I feel like we've had great training leading up to this. So I'm super excited to print those buyer guides. I did want to know how we print those buyer guides. Do we ask marketing to print them for us? Because I want to get my hands on a couple.
Yeah, you can just ask marketing to print you one. The generic base one without the agent images in it yet are ready to go. And you can
just go in the internet and go into marketing and request of them. They can print them on demand and have them in your inbox ready for you when you stop by your office. So I know downstairs in our office right now, he's printing a bunch of them based on the people have requested them today. And they'll have them in their hands as soon as they can pick them up tomorrow or later this afternoon.
Nice. Love it. I mean, you guys, so many people has done so much work on this. Cheryl has done so much work on this. Mark has done so much work. Steve Jr., Jamie, Tim spent so much time on this. And really the whole entire leadership team has weighed in on this. This has been, I think, didn't we start this, Kevin, we started this in August?
I think so. Yeah.
So
first drafts.
Yeah, first kind of outlines. As a matter of fact, I have the evidence sitting on my desk, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but oh crap, I just spilled water all over my desk. Oh, dang it.
While you're cleaning yourself up there, Will, Chris Visser says, is it in our interest to start moving the conversation towards what the new rules are going to be? We cannot open the door without an agreement first attempting to help educate the public towards a more of a normal expectation. Well, yeah, I mean, theoretically, we don't have choices, right? We have to have these conversations significantly sooner than we would otherwise.
And we have no idea how that's going to be enforced either.
Yeah.
I mean, is the listing agent going to require proof you have a signed buyer's agency before they let you in? Or is this going to be on the honor system? Or is it going to be, hey, if there's a problem, they want to see that the buyer's agency was dated prior to the visit? Who knows? So there's a lot we don't know.
Well, and also I think the enforcement of it will be similar to, I mean, we already have buyer broker agreements, and is anybody ever really raising any questions about that when we show homes or when we make offers? Has any listing agent go, hey, do you even have a buyer broker agreement to write this offer? I mean, I know that there's extenuating circumstances which might, pique your interest to ask the question, but we're not normally as listing agents asking those questions. We're making assumptions about it. I would guess that would continue.
Yeah, that comes up only when the division gets a complaint, looks at the file, and then looks at the date as to where the buyer broker agreement was signed, and looks at the digital signature. So right now, state law it's only required to have a buyer broker agreement prior to parties entering a REPC or a purchase agreement. And everyone's going to have to start. I think I finally got all that water cleaned up. Oh my gosh.
Section 5 of the REPC is confirmation that the buyer broker agreement exists and that's been signed. Yep. A lot of people think they're creating agency by checking that you represent the buyer in Section 5, but that's not true. So,
yep.
And I've battled that for years with agents saying, no, I represent them. Look right here in the REPC. Well, where's your buyer's agency? Well, I don't have one. Yep. So that could be problematic. It's particularly with these new rules.
Right. Of course, no agent at Berkshire Hathaway. So, all right, we'll pick up where we left off. Let's go into the next section of this. I want to spend a little time on what the add-ons could be. Kim DeVries kind of brought up, she adds a lot to her buyer packet. So with the resolution there, you should be looking at REPC, due diligence, checklist, and the resolution. And you're gonna show them how we're gonna resolve some of this stuff. And then we go into, let's go to the next page there, Mike. Sorry, I did a little bouncing there. So this is section 3. This is preparing to close, taking possession of the new home, and the buyer broker agreement. That's basically section 3. Okay, so next page. Preparing to close, so we get to talk about the walkthrough to confirm if we had any resolution issues. Again, you get to teach them about what that is. I'd grab a calendar and go hypothetically, this would fall somewhere in here. And this is going to spawn questions, hopefully. And then you can go down how deep you want to go in these conversations. Make sure that you present, Sharon, this is your favorite topic, the difference in settlement, closing, and recording. 3 separate terms, 3 separate definitions, often misunderstood, but very relative to the buyer as to when they can move in, right? So it affects them. And there's those definitions. So you can explain them. We have the warning, again, another warning of wire fraud. That's a great villain to talk about because these spams or scams are getting to very complicated. And I think this is a time to warn them about what can happen, that hackers can get into your email and wait and watch and then duplicate emails from other people. So it's a great time to talk about a villain right there. Next page. So taking possession, the move-in day, and we talk about how possession falls after closing and after funding and recording, and we can point to the section in Pepsi that deals with when we move in. We can also talk about how much time sellers may need to move out. If it's a negotiation point, there's a lot of different ways we can go there. Now we've got the buyer broker agreement. I mentioned this on sales meeting and the Zoom call yesterday. Paragraph 2, where it says, how is your agent compensated? We would have had to do an edit immediately after the NAR settlement guidelines came out to that paragraph. It still may need a few tweaks, but that fits today and the future. So you can use this right now on how your agent is compensated. Mike, do you want to blow that up and let's just read it? Actually, if somebody wants to read it, that'd be great.
All right, I'll read it. How is your agent compensated? Understanding how your agent is compensated is important. The details are found in the buyer broker agreement. Simply put, compensation is typically satisfied through one or more of the following: an offer of compensation made by the listing agent; 2, negotiations between you and the seller in the purchase agreement, and or by direct payment from you to your agent's brokerage. All of these details related to compensation are covered in section 2 of the buyer broker agreement.
Okay, you guys like that? Pretty simple, right? That addresses how we're paid. It used to say MLSs and cooperative compensation. Okay, so notice that's not there anymore. But yeah, that's simply put, and that's how it works. So I skipped over agency, its protections. Don't want to minimize any of this that we can have a chance to talk about fiduciary duty and what that means to have representation. You hear about that a lot, buyer representation. But what does that mean when someone represents you? So again, buyer broker agreement sitting right next to this page, so you can explain what fiduciary duties are and how that's a protection to them. I like this forever agent, that we really look at every relationship as forever and not transactionally based relationships. So you are committed to relationship principles, so honesty and loyalty and, all the things that make up a great relationship, trust, gratitude. So we're in it for the long haul. That's a great time to say that. And we look forward to having a great relationship with them. Okay, next page. All right, so we're back to the summary and how that all works. So you could just skip to this and use that grid if you want. We already went through it, so let's go to the next page. I'm kind of running out of time. So really, section 4 are checklists that you could add. All right, so go to the next page. We'll have links to these. You can just grab them, but this is the idea that you have the buyer broker agreement. Lifestyle checklist is questions like, tell me what's important to you. The buyer documentation checklist, borrower documentation, is something that Metro Mountain Mortgage put together about the kind of documentation they may need depending on where their income comes from. It's a lot more complicated than you would think. And this could be a great resource for them to help them, speed up the process of getting that pre-approval done. And then the buyer due diligence checklist, which I think is very, very appropriate. As a matter of fact, in the edition that we handed out in the annual awards or the annual kickoff meeting, it had the buyer due diligence checklist already in it. We decided, there was a debate. I know it took a lot of, I wanted it in there, just in there anyway. But when you step back and think about it, there's a lot of things that should just be added as additional insets. And I think it made sense to put it this way. In the end, I thought, yeah, that's probably right. It's a little cleaner, but why don't you bring those documents with you? And exclusive development opportunities. This is awesome. I mean, we represent so many developments. So why not flex that and talk about how many developments that we have access to? So the checklist of what not to do when it comes anticipating and making a real estate offer was a checklist that I saw years ago, and thought it was very pertinent here, that we don't think about these things, but depositing large sums of money could be a problem, actually, if we don't source where they came from. Certainly entering into new credit obligations during the time that you're under contract or getting ready to make an offer can be a problem. Changing your ownership interest of property or in other businesses could become a problem. So there's a great list there that would be another checklist to move. And then, of course, the moving checklist, which just helps them kind of organize. If they're one of those highly organized people, it's an asset that you could provide. I anticipate that the checklist list will even double. There'll be a lot more that we're going to add to this. So if you've got ideas on what you want to seek links to and other things that could be on that page, let me know, or, let your manager know, and we can make those changes. But I anticipate that's going to get bigger.
Well, I hope going into RC Willie and buying all new furniture for your home before it closes is on that list too.
Yeah, exactly.
So you no longer qualify for your loan.
Yep. Oh my gosh, you brought back a bad memory.
Or a new car to go in that new garage.
That's right.
Don't make large purchases.
Yep. I actually did that, so that's why you brought you had to, or you couldn't get furniture. But you'd have an empty house. Congratulations, I got nothing to move in. Anyway, yeah, it's a good reminder. Well, that's kind of it, guys. I've got a few, just want to remind everybody a couple things. I wrote this down. When you get news that has change, remember that first we all kind of had shock, right? You were kind of like, what? I mean, how many times have we said, are you kidding me? Then you get angry, right? Like, who made this mess? Then you start to further understand. Then you start to look forward. Then you start coping. And then you start being positive and confident again. So the reason I'm saying that is because we can't blame our center of influence, our buyers and sellers, for being misled by the media, and they may be in different levels of this as well, especially our colleagues too. I mean, I was speaking to an agent that's not in our company, but considering us, and really they had no guidance from their brokerage about any of this. And I spent 30 minutes telling him really what the stipulations were in the NAR lawsuit. Every time I said something, it was like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. What? And, so he was in the shock and anger phase, right? And then at band rehearsal, one of our bandmates said just last night to me, how do I get some of that money, And I'm like, well, I think you could get maybe $3. And they had heard, I go, so I guess you can negotiate commissions now? And I had to catch myself. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is, let's please practice empathy and patience as best we can with people that are bringing to us questions that they only heard from the news. It's not their fault that the news got it wrong, Yeah. So let's just be patient and kind and help them work through it. And they'll appreciate that. Just tell them the facts. Keep your opinion, like Just give them the facts. This is what the settlement says, and this is how it could impact us, and this is what we're seeing on the front lines.
Hey, Will, you were asking about a couple of additions that could possibly go into this packet as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, you got some?
I think there's one that's really important.
Okay.
Since we're selling ourselves, we're selling the company, selling the process, selling all of this. We really should have a well-done resume in there. It basically talks about your skills, your training, whatever. And I would also include in that resume, what you did prior to real estate and those transferable skills that make you a great realtor. Every single one of us has had probably a life before real estate, in which we gained some really valuable business skills, negotiating skills, other things. And the buyers want to know who you are, and not just about all the forms. They want to trust you as a person. So I think having a resume is important in there, but there's one other really important thing in connection with the resume. That resume should be on your website or on the Berkshire Hathaway website, because remember, going to the MLS, it's no longer going to have the BAC on there, but we'll have BAC on our website. So if buyers are going to that website to look at properties that they might want to look at, and properties that have, where the seller is offering compensation so that they don't have to pay their agent, they're going to look at those profiles. And I can guarantee you that if they go to that profile and it's blank, or it's got the standard little thing that marketing puts in there for you, they're going to say new agent next. And you're not going to have an opportunity to work with that person. Even if you met them in a gallery or you met them in an open house, they're going to vet the agent that they decide to go into contract with and hire. So you've got to go in there and actually get your profile up to speed in the Berkshire Hathaway Utah Properties website, and create a resume that tells them who you are and why you're the best fit to help them get into the home that they're looking for. Kimberly, do you have one in your packet? I'm guessing yes, because it sounds
not
like
yet, but I will within the next 2 weeks. I mean, I got to have 2 weeks, but I'm on it. Thank you so much. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are so amazing at what you do, and your journey has been amazing. The way you became a professional, and I think you've got to educate people on that. And you can do it without being arrogant. You can just do it. This is me. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And people
I go
love.
so far as to suggest that by July, those people that don't have profiles are the ones that'll be out of the business.
Yeah, we kind of are anticipating a drop in agent count because this is a big shift for those who really don't have a very good value proposition. So don't be surprised when you do see some agents drop out of the business. So be grateful that you have the resources you have around you, and that you're a high-level professional, because you're a survivor. So
Yep. I see Tara Hayden here she says, I was talking to another agent from out of state, and they said they had a class on designing the why me statement. That's important to have that elevator speech, and the ability to let people know why they should be working with you and the value that you bring to them.
Yep. Love that. Love that. Let me give you another random tip before we go. A lot of you are posting. I watch you on social media. Mike, can you pull up 158? Just want to make sure you guys get this last tip. When you're talking about data and you're posting like what's going on, if you're referencing, say, the new market statistics and solds and listings and trends or days on market, and you're pointing to all this, I just want to remind you about something that will set you apart. This is page 158, where it illustrates this in the coaching manual. But over there to the left, it says, knowledge is nice, but wisdom is why it matters. This is the discussion that we have about context over content, and that you bring the reason the data matters. So remember to not just talk about the days on market and the trends, but talk about why it matters. So those questions would be, what does this matter to me? What does this information say about what lies ahead? How does this affect my ability to sell or purchase? What does this information tell me that I did not know? What new challenges are we facing because of this data? think about those and look at your data that you've pulled, and then ask yourself these questions from the eyes of buyers and sellers and give them the context to the content. And what you'll do is you'll provide wisdom, and the wisdom is why you're so valuable. Okay, so that's it. Let's close that one down. I hope that helps you, and I'm very proud of you guys, especially those who are making new strides into social media and having that endeavor. And I'm proud of you for making that an objective. That's just a little tip I think will make you stand out from the crowd. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions or comments on this? No, Mike, Kev, Rob,
Nope.
Sharon, Kim.
Good.
Everybody's
Just
good?
remember, all the agents out there are going through exactly what you're doing. And so nobody has an advantage in any of this. And those that adapt and learn to thrive will have a huge opportunity right now to get ahead of the competitors that they're up against every day. So don't worry about it. Everybody else is going through the same thing.
Yeah, I think we're pretty well equipped, but yes, everyone's trying to adjust. I think we're adjusting faster. I mean, frankly, we've been talking about a lot of this for a long, long time. So,
Yeah.
but hey, and thanks for the thank yous, you guys. Really appreciate your gratitude. Joe, you can stop